like it would never bear any meaningful fruit.
What's up, guys? John back with another reaction video, and thank you to those who have recommended me videos in the past couple of weeks. Today we are going to react to NASCAR's greatest finish in history. So appreciate those of you who have recommended me this video. This is gonna be very cool because, kind of like Fast and Furious, there's going to be races that are very, very close, and I'm very excited to see which race that's going to be. Let's go. All right, let's get into it. And we got the Tide car and the Rubbermaid car. Oh!
We all know what's about to happen next, right? This is going to be the greatest finish in NASCAR history. On a cloudy day on March 16th, 2003, at Darlington Raceway, the Carolina Dodge Dealers 400 ended in spectacular fashion. But how did we get to this point right here? Who are these two guys? Why is this track in the middle of nowhere, and why is it so weird? And is that a Pontiac? Let's answer all these questions and more, because lost in all the beating and banging and smoke and sparks are a lot of underlying storylines that even the most hardcore of NASCAR fans may have forgotten about over time. Stories that give me a pang of anxiety every time I think about what might have been had this not happened. So, let's get started.
Wow,
first, we'll start with the two men involved in this incredible finish, Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven. Let's start with our man on the left, Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch at this point was a four-time winner in NASCAR's top series, and he was in the early stages of just his third full-time season. Having lit up the truck series in such dominating fashion in 2000, his team owner Jack Roush made the decision to have him skip the second tier series entirely and pressed him into service in the top division in 2001 to replace Chad Little.
Wait, can NASCAR drivers drive trucks as well? Like, can they drive different types of vehicles, or can they only drive a car? Let me know down in the comments if that's true or not. That would be awesome if they're able to drive different types of vehicles. That would be like the ultimate driver.
Having already made a few starts with the team the previous year, it took him a season to adjust, but by the end of the 2002 season, he had those 4 wins and had finished third in the championship point standings. In 2003, people are even starting to talk about a legit championship run, which would be a first for Jack Roush. Even though Roush had been competing in NASCAR since the 80s and had 5 teams running full-time since 1998, he had never hoisted the Winston Cup at season's end. Mark Martin had come runner-up on 4 separate occasions, but the other components of the team had underperformed, to say the least. Ted Musgrave, Chad Little, Johnny Benson, and Kevin LePage had never won a race for the team. But by 2003, new blood had come into the mix, and now all the pieces are there for a real powerhouse team. Mark Martin, the veteran, is still there. Jeff Burton has grown into a threat to win week in and week out. Matt Kenseth, the 2000 Rookie of the Year, has several wins already. Greg Biffle, the guy who edged out Kurt for the 2000 Truck Series Championship, is new to the series but has a solid body of work in the lower divisions, including championships in the 3rd and 2nd tier series. And now Kurt Busch, the young phenom, is the last puzzle piece to push Roush Racing into championship contention.
Him before.
Kurt, however, was the black sheep. Whereas every other Roush driver up to this point had been a clean-cut, lawful good kind of guy, Kurt had mixed it up with several drivers in his short tenure in the Cup Series. His most notable rival at this stage was Jimmy Spencer, who he had dumped at Bristol en route to his first win, and Jimmy had no problem responding in kind. After one incident with Spencer, Kurt verbally lashed out and called him a has-been.
So are there these rivalries between the drivers? I'm curious, like, do they call each other, oh, you're a dirty driver, or he plays dirty? And I'm sure that happens because in all sports, rivalries between 2 teams or players, they're always accusing each other of something like playing dirty or something like that. So is Kurt Busch one of those guys?
Then retracted what he had said and instead called him a never was. In a post-Dale Earnhardt Sr. world, it was nice to see a guy so willing to don the black hat, and he wore it well. It was easy to hate him. He was a pampered little shit from Las Vegas, far removed from the good old boy club of the Southeast that had made the sport what it was. Fans were split on him, but I enjoyed watching somebody play the part of the heel. The sport needed that, and I immediately took a liking to him. While greatness surely awaited Kurt Busch if he could hold his temper at bay, Ricky Craven, on the other hand, was a journeyman. Up to this point right here, he had only ever won a single race in his entire career. Having
Whoa.
been brought up from the Busch Series in 1995 to field a mid-pack car for Larry Hedrick, success seemed like it would never find Craven. He would get a few top fives here and there, but overall his career looked like it would never bear any meaningful fruit. And it wasn't like he didn't have his chances either. In 1997, Rick Hendrick would tap him to drive his number 25 car, and it seemed early on like it was a good fit for him. In the Daytona 500 that year, he was the end cap to that iconic Hendrick 1-2-3 finish. But past that, he couldn't amount to much.
Wow, look at
the
how
25 team had won with the likes of Tim Richmond and Ken Schrader at the helm, but they had become the weakest team out of the Hendrick stable by the time 1997 rolled around. In 1998, he would be relegated to a part-time slot for Hendrick Motorsports in the 50 car, and nearly faded into obscurity. Fast forward to 2001, and Cal Wells hires Ricky Craven to drive his number 32 Tide Ride for PPI Motorsports, which had stumbled onto the scene in 2000 and had only ever gotten one top 10. Ricky was far from an obvious choice to pilot the car. Since 1998, he had only netted one top 10 himself, and had not competed full-time in NASCAR in 4 years. Despite that, though, in 2001 he had the best statistical year of his career and nabbed 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s, a pole, and even did the unthinkable and got his first win.
Wait, is that legal to, like, two cars touch each other? Like, is that legal to, is that a legal move? In order to, you know, bump someone, are there penalty points for doing that kind of thing? Let me know, because I have no idea. I see that happen all the time. And because they are racing in such tight quarters, because there's so many cars and it happens all the time, do drivers, is that kind of like expected that you're kind of playing bumper car?
A downright barn burner between himself and Dale Jarrett at Martinsville in 2001. The future was starting to look bright for PPI, and in 2002 he would improve, getting 3 top 5s, 9 top 10s, 2 poles, and an average finish of 19, the best of his career. Going into 2003, the second win of the organization seems all but assured, and the tricky track of Darlington Raceway looks like the perfect spot. Darlington Raceway is one of the oldest tracks on the NASCAR circuit, having been built in 1950 as the south answer to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was NASCAR's first superspeedway, being just a smidge over 1.33 miles long. It's a tough track to navigate due to a number of reasons stemming from its construction. You run right up next to the wall instead of around the bottom because there's a lot of banking up there and you can go way faster. Why did they put this thin strip of banked asphalt up against the wall? Well, originally it was a safety feature, designed to help cars scrub off speed before they hit the wall. But it didn't take long for guys to realize that they could cut their lap time significantly by just driving on the emergency pavement. Another thing that makes this track so treacherous is that turns 1 and 2 have a way wider radius than turns 3 and 4. That guy went over so crews are constantly readjusting their cars. If you make your car handle better in 1 and 2, then you probably have to sacrifice the handling in 3 and 4 and vice versa. Why did they build it like this? Well, this guy over here didn't want to sell this minnow pond, and the track owner just decided to build around it instead. So Darlington maintains its iconic egg shape even to this day. But why Darlington, South Carolina? Why did they decide to build the Southeast's first superspeedway here of all places? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. The track owner, Harold Brasington, was from this area, the land was cheap, and he went to the Indy 500 in 1948 and thought, hey, if they can do this here, I can do this back home. And so he bought 70 acres and just did it. Things were a lot simpler back then, and so he built a legit superspeedway in the middle of some swampy farmland. And that's not an exaggeration either. You have to cross a literal mosquito-infested swamp before you actually get to the track itself. Gotta love the Southeast. However, in the early 2000s, Darlington's starting to show its age. Most other tracks are getting crowds in the 100,000 range to show up on race day, but Darlington, due to its somewhat remote location, can only call upon 65,000 or so to show up for its 2 race dates per year. Other tracks have been removed from the schedule in the past decade or so for that exact same reason. Nashville Fairgrounds wasn't keeping up with demand, so they got dropped from the schedule in the 80s. And in 1996, North Wilkesboro Speedway ran its final race and closed its doors because NASCAR wanted to expand beyond the confines of Wilkes County. North Wilkesboro had been on the schedule since NASCAR's inception in 1949, but its legacy couldn't save it, and even its 60,000 diehard fans just weren't enough. North Wilkesboro now rots out in the foothills of North Carolina.
Wait, I have a question. Those back in the day, those kind of classic cars that were racing, like they didn't have the security features that cars have now, right? They don't have helmets. They didn't have anything. I don't even know if they had airbags. So if they got into a crash, that's pretty much like fatal, right?
as nature slowly reclaims the abandoned track. In 2003, it is announced that another legacy track, Rockingham Speedway, will lose a date and will only run
Nextel.
one
You
race
guys
in
remember
2004.
Nextel?
In 2005, it will be removed from the schedule entirely. That same year, Darlington will lose one of its 2 dates. The writing is on the wall. Unless something major happens, Darlington is in some serious jeopardy of being jettisoned from the schedule entirely. NASCAR is changing, and the promise of unprecedented mainstream success lies just ahead, and it is more than willing to climb atop the crumbling ruins of the cathedrals of speed that made it what it was to reach that goal. Darlington is on the chopping block, and everybody knows it. They need a great showing in this next race to save them. But that car Ricky Craven's driving, that's a Pontiac, and this is their last year of competition. Having come off championships in 2000 and 2002 with Joe Gibbs Racing, JGR made the switch to Chevy in 2003. And despite the fact that they unveiled a new model of Grand Prix that looks slick as hell, very few elected to stick it out with Pontiac. Cal Wells and PPI.
Yeah, Pontiac, the cars were, my college roommate had a Pontiac and I drove it like a couple times. The quality of the cars were just terrible. Let me know if you had ever owned one, and let me know if your experience with the Pontiac, how it was, because I remember everything was just like plastic inside. I think it was a Trans Am. It was like red, kind of like burgundy color, and I think that was like the most popular color back then. But anyways, it drove all right, but yeah, it looked like a pretty cheap car.
Actually made the switch from Ford to Pontiac in 2003, only to find out later that they'd have to jump ship at the end of the season. Since Pontiac and Chevy are both part of General Motors, Pontiac's inclusion in NASCAR has always been seen as redundant, as Chevy was the winningest make in NASCAR history. In 2001, Dodge re-enters NASCAR after a 20-year
That looks a
hiatus.
lot nicer
The
than
manufacturer
Trucking.
lineup is getting pretty crowded. The big three of Ford, GM, and Chrysler Corp are all represented, and Pontiac is a make whose best days are behind them, and are now just looking to go out with a bang. They've only got one top 10
It's a
finish
big-ass
as a
trophy.
manufacturer in the first 4 races of the season.
my
They
goodness.
got their work cut out for them. And now we get to the actual race itself. What series of events had to transpire to get to this point right here? 2 guys slamming into each other and barreling towards the line. Well, qualifying was on the Friday prior, but Saturday's track activities were
Look
rained
at all
out.
those
Final
buses in
practice
the
never
middle.
occurred, and all the rubber's been washed off the track. Darlington is an unknown quantity today, and since this is the era before competition cautions, these guys are just going to have to fire engines and figure out the track as they go along. Elliott Sadler starts on the pole, but Rocket Ryan Newman, as he so often did at this time, sits on the front row as well. The starting lineup is a weird one. We got a lot of unfamiliar faces up front and a lot of the big dogs towards the rear. This is going to be an interesting race any way you slice it. Kurt begins his journey from the 6th spot, but Craven will have to start way behind in 31st. But after a spin by Jerry Nadeau on lap 7, Craven stays out on the track as pretty much everybody ahead of him comes into the pits to make adjustments. It's a risky move as Darlington's surface is old and abrasive and chews up tires in just a matter of a handful of laps. Craven restarts just inside the top 10 and manages to survive out there on older tires. He'll hang around in the top 15 for the rest of the day. As is the case with any race at Darlington, there's a lot of comers and goers, as the track eats up tires and equipment. The lead changes hands 15 times during this race, and had several dominant cars out in front during different stages of the race. With about 25 to go, Kurt Busch hopes to put in the last lead change as he makes a bonsai 3-wide pass going into turn 3. People often joke that Darlington has about 1.5 grooves to race in, and unfortunately nobody starts the race with half a car. But Kurt Busch sent it into turn 3, and Jeff Gordon and Elliott Sadler back off. Gordon was battling with Sadler so hard that he blows a tire late in the race and fades to the rear. Likewise, Sadler is all used up and he starts to drop back too. Craven, who was running in 5th when this all went down, calmly picks off Dave Blaney in 4th, passes the injured cars of Sadler and Gordon, and with 15 laps to go, Kurt Busch had just a 3-second lead over Craven. A 3-second lead with that many laps to go at most tracks would be insurmountable, but Craven has 3 big advantages. First off, Kurt's used up whatever good was left in his tires since he's been mixing it up with the leaders for the last 30 laps. Second, Craven has been biding his time and slowly working his way up, and he hasn't been nearly as hard on his tires. And third, and perhaps most importantly, Kurt has lost power steering in the later stages of this race. If you've ever driven a car that has lost power steering, you know how hard you have to crank that wheel just to get it to turn into your driveway. Kurt is having to manhandle his car around NASCAR's most treacherous track at a speed of over 150 miles an hour. He's exhausted. With 3 laps to go, Craven has caught Kurt, and he's right on his back bumper. What ensues is the craziest final series of turns of any race ever. It's just poetry in motion. Craven goes into turn 3 high and then cuts down hard into 4. He
Mm-hmm.
pulls up alongside Kurt, but Kurt's got the momentum off the high side and Craven can't complete the pass. Turn 1 is a one groove turn and somebody has to give, but neither driver does. Kurt holds his line and Craven slams him into the wall, but the move breaks Craven's momentum.
Can you slam someone into the wall and get away with it, or are you disqualified? Let me know.
Kurt runs him down and boots him into the wall in turn 2. 2 to go. Craven spends the next lap and a half gaining back all the ground he's lost and trying to set up the pass. Turns 3 and 4 on the last lap will be his one and only shot. He sends it down the backstretch. The high side has been Kurt's Achilles heel all day. He's been passed out there more times than I've bothered to count. He knows this. He goes up high to block. Craven sees it coming. He uses his slightly better tires to cut down hard to the inside.
Crazy.
Coming out.
That is crazy. He's like just like hydroplaning. I don't even know how you can keep the car straight at that point, going that speed. Turning while turning, that's crazy.
At turn 4, he's got the run. He can make the pass going down the front stretch. But in a jaw-dropping move, Kurt turns dead left and slams into Craven, killing all of his momentum. The two fight with each other's cars, trying to wrench themselves free, but their fenders are locked. Whoever was ahead at the point of impact will be the winner. There's nothing left to decide this race except physics and fate.
That's literally an inch. Man, that's crazy.
And so, there it is. A never was versus a soon to be, driving for a manufacturer whose glory days have long since passed and are just looking to go out on a high note. And all of this is happening at an old track in some swamp in South Carolina that desperately needs a good race to remain relevant and avoid extinction. Maybe it was fate, or maybe the collective free will of all the people involved in this finish gave us this perfect little moment in motorsports history. Either way, what happens next is, as they say, a moment in history. Enjoy.
Oh, we get to watch it in real time. Oh, number 2 must have been so pissed. I would be.
You know, I've done this for over 20 years, and as a racer, that's it. You dream of that.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was an awesome race. I didn't give him room in 1, and he didn't give me room out of 4. It's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, this was some hard-fought racing.
It's a good thing that Pontiac's got the kick out on the nose.
Yeah, that was the difference.
But he wouldn't have won.
Literally, just a bumper. Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what, they didn't even need seats in these grandstands because nobody was sitting down. And nobody's leaving.
Wow, so it's still there today? Oh, wow. So that was quite a race. I have never seen a race that close before. Let me know if there were any other races as close as this one. But I can't even imagine. That's literally like the bumper of the car. And let me know down in the comments below what other NASCAR videos you guys want me to react to next. I'll try to find some other sports to react to, but until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one. Chee!